Hello and welcome. I'm Sue Ann with Right Mixer Business, and this is the Marketing Mirror. And today we're going to be talking about UX or user experience. And I have a UX or user experience design expert in the house today. His name is Philip. He's from the Netherlands. I'm going to let you watch the video so you can hear him pronounce his last name. But the studio is BT ng.studio. That's the name of his business, again, out of the Netherlands. And I really find user experience a fascinating topic. User interface, user experience, these things really matter, especially now in business. His customers find working with Philip to be a transformative process where, with their input, he transforms their design into a state of the art solution. And he works with companies, world class companies, doing world class user experience design. So I was really excited and wanted to talk to Philip. I met him through the Cast Magic Slack community. And it's one of the best things about being in the digital space is that you can talk to a guy on the other side of the world and learn about something interesting that I want to share with you guys. Let's learn more with Philip about user experience. Stay tuned.
Step inside the marketing mirror to uncover marketing secrets, discover gems, tactics, lessons, and campaigns you can use. Next gen or fundamentals. Grab the marketing magic to improve your marketing and win more business.
And that's btng.studio to check out Philip's services with his unique design subscription model for your UX. You want to have what he brings you, which is state of the art transformation for user experience. So check out Philip and let's talk to him right now on the Marketing Mirror. I'm so excited to have him. So let's go.
My whole origin story goes back to web design and designing digital products. And the whole UX part, the user experience, really is something that I've been fortunate enough to take with me and also bring to my own business. And it helped me in a lot of ways to think about who I am as a person, and what problems I'm trying to solve. So it's been something that I've been fortunate enough to take with me. The short introduction about me is I'm Philip. I'm 37. In the Netherlands, and about 20 years ago I started my digital career as a designer, and it started out really with building websites for small businesses. After 7 years of working hard but not making any profits, just paying the bills, I decided to pull the plug, and I made the switch to UX design, which is more about how people experience using digital applications. I reached out to digital agencies in the Netherlands, especially Media Monks, where I got to work on projects for Adidas and Lego. And after those projects, a lot of doors opened for me in and around Amsterdam, where I got to work for companies as Vodafone, PwC, Adidas, a lot of big brands.
Wow.
And after a couple of years of freelancing, unfortunately, I treated myself to a burnout. Perhaps it was that daily commute of 2 hours to get there and 2 hours to get back home. Who would say? But I really had to rethink of what I was doing and what worked for me and what didn't work for me. So after a bit of an exploratory phase, I discovered Miro, remote workshops, design sprints, and really working more with a stricter process, which in a way was the starting point for me to discover productization as well.
Systems and processes are something that I'm learning more and more and more to embrace, because as a creative kind of tilt to me, I I tend to be a little bit more like a little bit resistant, I would even say, to a scheduler systems or so, but I'm starting to embrace, especially in this digital space, the beauty, because what I've discovered, and you're discovering this, if you're like most of us in this space with AI, the technology, if you use it as that tool, as that pal, as that helper, it gives you the ability, I think, to have more time for creativity. Haha.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah,
how
that's a
I'm
good
looking
one.
at it, right? So, but what I'm interested in talking to you today about, even though, like I said, there's a million topics I think we would be able to discuss and have fun discussing. But what I'm really interested in is user experience, because you are a professional. That is where you've really focused and honed in your agency and your talents. And it's a fascinating topic because you hear people use that term user experience and UX, UI, user interface, user experience, like it's nothing, but it's really something I think huge. And I want to know, as a UX designer and specialist, how do you really hone in on, how do you like find the data points? How do you determine how somebody's doing in their UX, UI ability? Like, how do you measure it? Like,
Yeah.
did you start with that? Because that's tricky to me.
That definitely is a challenging part of the UX side of things. To start it off, maybe it's good to really figure out, like, within UX, I'm a big fan of design thinking, really helping companies actually solve a problem. And within that methodology, and I'll try not to get too technical, there's this thing called the double diamonds. And there are two diamonds, as one could imagine. And the first one is really about understanding the problem that you're solving. And the idea of a diamond is, if you go from left to right, is first that it expands, it goes up and down. Mm-hmm. And that part is really about gathering the information to understand the problem. Next, you bring everything together, all the data, all the insights. At that point, you're able to say, like, okay, we've done the research. These are the things that we've discovered from the problem. They could be opportunities, pain points, you name it. And you can visualize that in customer journey mapping. For example, it's the visualization of the journey that a customer goes through with all the emotional ups and downs. I was going to
just ask you, where do those data points come from? So you're measuring those against things like the customer journey, and if they have like content throughout there, or?
Yeah, there are two different ways, there are a lot of different ways of doing research, but you can divide them in two different topics. One is qualitative research, which is really more one-on-one and a conversation like we're having now, where we really explore new insights and understand why. Because the counterpart, quantitative research, is really about data and big numbers, forms and surveys, and they give you more the statistic side of things, but they don't tell you why. So if you would perhaps send out surveys or do this quantitative research, you might discover something that you could say, hey, something's going on here, or people are like giving a specific step in their journey, like a very low grade. That would be a great moment to figure out, well, let's talk to some people specifically about that and dig deeper and try to understand why they're experiencing that or where that comes from. So that is part of the exploring, the discovery phase. And when it really comes to the numbers and metrics, there's no real simple answer. Of course, there are things,
because it would be related to what they're trying to accomplish. What you would you like reverse engineer in a way, depending on their need then, or do you have like a set of like data points or areas that you automatically look at?
That's client specific. If you perhaps have an e-commerce client with a big web shop or a big e-commerce platform, you're looking at different data than someone who has a mobile app, or maybe it's more of a service provider. So it's all, there's no one size fits all solution, unfortunately, but perhaps maybe also good, because otherwise my life would be a lot easier. And
Right.
who wants that, right?
Right. Right. And there'd be less reason to call you to figure it all out.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but I don't want to make it sound like we're making things more complicated than it needs to be. But at the end of the day, it's really about understanding who your customers are, how are they interacting with your product or business or service, and how can you make that experience as pleasant as possible. And the whole digital landscape plays a big part in that. How do they interact with everything with your business, and how can you make that as well, not necessarily fun, but enjoyable as possible.
So the first part of the diamond is the discovery and the getting to get the why out of people.
Yes, exactly.
The data discovery and the human discovery, right? And then
yeah, it's the discovering all the collecting information and bringing it together. So it's called discover and define.
okay.
Define. Where you really come to a point where you say, okay, we've researched it and this is what we learned from it. And the second part is really about trying to solve it. And in a nutshell, it's nothing more than creating concepts or prototypes, things that you can try out on your users, and then learning if it actually improves it or not. Because even though I've been a digital designer for over 20 years, I still can't guarantee that an idea that I have will actually be the solution, because it's so personal. Every audience is different, and you need to experiment and try it out and measure to see if it is actually an improvement or not.
Would you say this, that you do you tend to incorporate at this point that creativity positioning that I think look, I get this is a big discussion in my world, like creativity versus like business and creativity. Where do they fit together? But I believe, especially in the realm of UX, there is a big part of creativity that, you know, the data people maybe don't want to consider. But I think that the real like match made in heaven is data meets creativity. Hello, let's play together. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, the definitely the data people to to get them angry. Let's just call them the data people.
Yeah.
There's creativity there, and a lot of it. I think in order to create a compelling data structure that you can use to gain those insights from, is creativity in its own way.
Right.
So but yeah, I do think that the two definitely complement each other, and really comes down to a 1 + 1 = 3 situation.
And so what part would you say user experience plays in digital marketing in particular?
Oh, it's super important. Same goes for the creativity part. When you're applying digital marketing, it's really about being able to communicate the value that the business has to offer. And in order to do that, you need to understand who you're talking to, what problems they have, what is important to them. I mean, if I'm selling phones or iPhones or whatever, I can yell that they have the best camera ever. If my audience doesn't care about the camera, your marketing won't be much of a success.
Right.
So the user experience part, or even understanding the user, is it's vital to it.
That's my next question is, how do you go about understanding what it is, what to do to create that great user experience for a particular client? So that, I guess that's really like, so what are the most effective use cases to implement? I guess the user experience might be a better way to ask that. How do you?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a relatively simple one, and it is simply talking to your stakeholders. Depending on what you're working on, maybe you can call them customers. If you're selling maybe B2B or B2C and you only want to talk to your customers, it's a customer. But maybe you're improving a business process, so you're talking to your colleagues and their managers and different stakeholders.
Right.
But that talking part is a big one, because we don't know what we don't know, and there's
It's so
one way to
funny to
find
me
out.
how many people don't talk to their clients to find out what it is. Because I find that your clients will tell you what it is different about you. Like they're
Hmm.
like the first one to say, oh, I dealt with this company that does the same thing, but they don't go about it like this. So they kind of tell you where you differentiate yourself, at least in my experience. I'm not sure if that's always the case, but I find it funny that so many people don't just talk to the people they serve to learn this stuff. They go about it in a roundabout way.
Yeah, I can actually take that one level further, because there are also businesses who actually do talk to their customers, but they're not sharing it. So there is a thing called a UX repository, or a user research repository, and
Oh,
there are different tools. I won't like name drop anything. I don't have any shares, but I'll keep it non-commercial. There are actually tools that are also designed to say, well, if it's transcribed, people can select pieces of text and say, this is about retention. Why
right.
is a customer extending their contract?
Or
Or
like
why
if
did
you
they
would read
churn?
like their Amazon reviews in that space, like that's an old trick for copywriting where you go in and like read reviews about what people say concerning whatever topic you're going to write about so that you can speak the language of the audience right back at them, so to speak.
Yes,
Something
and
similar to that.
well, the nice thing about it is that if you have salespeople, if you have support people, if you have different people doing these calls, and you would get them into your
All
repository,
becomes part
and
of the
they would
repository.
exactly. So what you could do then, as a designer or anyone within maybe product management as well, is say, show me all the things that are being said about why customers are canceling their subscription. You're getting all these snippets from different calls and different conversations that you can actually use in that first diamond with the discovery and the insight, to say, well, we have all this information now. What are actually the conclusions or maybe hypotheses that we can create based on the things that our customers are saying?
So
So
beyond collect it, we need to review and analyze it.
yeah, exactly, because
And
there
people
might be a
don't,
lot
they
of
don't think like
information.
that. They don't see that golden nugget that you're going to find.
Yeah, and I think it's a really valuable, yeah, 360-degree view, whatever corporate slang you want to throw on top of it.
Right,
But
right.
it's a really nice way to get those insights from across your organization, to be able to, well, how awesome is it if you work on a product and you're able to see what your customers are saying about what feature they would love to see most, or what thing they're missing in the product. It's, yeah, it's incredible. It's definitely a gold nugget, or a gold mine, even however you want to call it.
So would you say, do you have a standard formula then for executing the user experience design consistently throughout operations and digitally also for like kind of that omni-channel approach? Do you take it like that far, or do you just do it more like on a project or campaign? I think I
Yeah,
I think maybe I think maybe people need to think of their overall user experience, but how does that pan out? Or is that a good reason why you flipped your digital freelance services into a subscription model so they have that ability to make that be a more consistent, ongoing, maybe that, oh, maybe you're thinking a lot in that in terms of there.
yeah. The Okay, that's it is a bit of a complicated question, but
I keep doing that.
um,
Sorry.
no worries. That's I think those are great questions. Um, First part is probably from the client's perspective. How to go from, well, you can also call it customer centric. How well do you focus on your customers within your business?
Right.
There's a whole maturity model saying, well, we don't care about customer, we don't listen, we never spoken to a customer, which is like some sort of unrealistically low version, which hopefully not a single company finds themselves in. To, we have a system in place to which we have like weekly calls or settings, and we go through that information. How to get from crawling to flying, in a way, in that maturity model, it is a complicated process, because it's also about teaching education or educating a business and changing the way people work. So that is a pretty long story.
It's also
But
so important. I think what you're hitting on too is that when people work with you, they're partnering with you. They're not.
It's not something that I
hiring.
can do for them. You can't say like, oh,
Yes.
I hire a UX designer. Now our organization is customer centric.
Right.
But I can definitely help them adopting that mindset.
Today's video for the show is sponsored by the spectacular, the incomparable, the one and only Eileen Smith. Known to friends, colleagues, and her many fans as Ms. Eileen, she's been called a digital trailblazer, and her YouTube channel featuring live stream edutainment and every other kind of video creation has over 2 million views. Subscribe to her YouTube channels and look for a new video, short, or live stream weekly from Ms. Eileen. And you'll love the insider information, tips, and insights she shares in her weekly multimedia newsletter, the Digital News Weekly. You can subscribe using the link below the video to get the latest scoops made especially for all the beautiful people in the creator community by the spicy and smart Ms. Eileen Smith. See you there? Now back to the Marketing Mirror.
In answer to that question, though, really, I think you're saying there's not necessarily a standard formula to execute it consistently throughout, but you do want them to have an omni-channel approach, really, right?
Yes. Yeah. You have to start somewhere as well. I do think maybe one of the challenges, as you mentioned, on the topic of pushback or doing things a certain way, I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Like if you would have a UX designer who's like, yeah, but we need to do more research, we need to talk to more people, and we haven't done quantitative, and we need to do this and this. At some point, you do need to say like, okay, we need to take some steps.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's very difficult to get things right on the first try anyway. So I think it's more important to feel comfortable with, okay, we have an assumption, this is what we think, we're going to try it out, and we're going to measure it in whatever way we can to see if it's an improvement or not. Because at the end of the day, it's not really about making these huge jumps in rebuilding an entire application or an entire website. Exactly. And being okay with that and taking smaller steps.
That's one of the things I kind of love about digital as opposed to print media and things that, we used to do. You used to have that copy, that graphic, that everything set, and there was no ability to make a change. You know what I mean? Like I remember like layout, like I'm old, like so old that it was like cut and paste newspaper. You know what I mean? Like you literally cut and paste the design that was going to go on the thing. Yeah. On the printing press. Like I go way back to when, you had to actually like type the thing, cut out the columns and stick them on the page that was going to be the layout.
Yeah.
So it's incredible. And that's why I think it's so fun and why I think user experience has an important role in all of marketing right now and digital marketing. Do you think that user experience design plays a part in a product or service level of interaction so that you do unique or customized user experience within the bigger user experience planner?
Yes,
in other words,
absolutely. There's also for the people listening who might be a bit further away from the topic, there's also service design. And the whole idea of a user experience is really, well, what do they experience? And when we think about digital and we think like, where does the customer journey begin? Maybe we're thinking like, when they visit our product page.
Right.
It's like, well, actually, they visited your product page because they maybe Googled a specific product and they found you. But they decided to Google it when they maybe heard friends talk about it, or they saw, I don't know, a situation happened in which they thought like, oh, I need something like this. So the user experience or the customer journey, it goes outside of the digital product. And with the idea of a service design, it's really also how they interact with your company. So maybe Yes, they go to your website, they order a product, and what happens then? So they walk away from the computer, they wait till maybe they receive a notification or a confirmation on their phone. They receive the product, they get a box, and how does that box look and feel?
It's that next step that I think is so key when they're actually allowing you to interact with them. And I think that a lot of marketers drop the ball because they're like just looking for that click to get that buy. They forget that the user experience is really starting now. Now they're interacting with you. Now is when we have to create that really great experience that makes them feel like, wow, this company's cool. How they right away let me know something or right away sent me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot. Do you agree in this? I think people drop the ball at that point, which I think is maybe the key point of user experience.
Yeah, definitely. I think to give you an example, you mentioned I'm from the Netherlands. We're bicycle country #1 and extremely proud of that for some reason. But there's actually almost like the Dutch Amazon, I would say. They're, of course, Dutch, so it's a bit smaller than Amazon, but also an online marketplace or e-commerce platform. And their motto or their slogan is literally everything for a smile. So they do things like, for example, if you order a washing machine or a dryer, they actually carry it up your stairs and connect it, and they take your old one with them, so you don't have to worry about how to get rid of that. The same with a mattress. Actually, if they have certain warehouses in certain cities, if you live in one of those cities, there's a chance that someone actually will deliver it on a bicycle. We have these very weird bicycles called bakfiets in the Netherlands, which is like a bicycle with a bathtub in front of it almost. It looks ridiculous. But those are things like they're not on your e-commerce platform, but they are definitely reasons for people to order with you again. So if you want to think about your customer experience or user experience, it extends your digital landscape.
And these details, it's so cool. I only like a bike with a motor.
I agree.
But okay, so I love that because it can play a part at the product service level. It can, and that can be within a bigger user experience framework, and it does take place at the different parts of the buying journey, including beyond the buy. People beyond the buy. That's where I find that people drop the ball, and and don't keep up with their things. Not that I'm not guilty myself, like an email marketing position, things like that. Let's see. I think I only have another question or two for you. So how can solopreneurs and small businesses implement user experience design into their businesses for a better user experience, for lead gen, and to increase sales?
Really good question. Of course, depending on the size of the company and what industry you're in, everyone would have their own fit. I think also with user experience design and design thinking, it's really about solving problems. And yes, we are talking users and user needs and how can we make the life of our customers easier. But the business goals really plays a part in it as well. So you mentioned it extends beyond the buy button. What is the problem that your business has at this point? Do you need more clients? Do you need more recurring business? Do you what is the problem that your business has right now? And then the question is, well, okay, how can you get there by solving a problem that your user might have? So if you're thinking about, well, I need more recurring business, then it's like, okay, well, that's good. Let's talk to your current customers and learn about why they do or do not return. Or let's take a look at what you're currently doing and trying to achieve that and find a way to improve that or implement other ways that actually helps you to get closer to that result. So I think in order to apply user experience design, I think it's important to, of course, know who your customers are, and there are all sorts of different customers. Understand what are their pains, or at the end of the day, they're buying something from you to achieve a certain goal or to get a certain feeling or get a specific result. And yeah, it's important to know and understand that, because what I think is still a great example of a theory called jobs to be done. It is the question of what job is your product doing for your customer. So when it comes to, for example, I can't remember the name, but it's within my experience, it's a well-known example of a guy who did research towards milkshakes of fast food companies, and they were thinking about, well, we want to sell more milkshakes. We're not selling any milkshakes. What's going on? And what are we competing with? What is the job that a milkshake is trying to complete? And it sounds a bit silly, but bear with me. So when actually, especially with fast food, there's some sort of drive-through system. And the idea of when people would order a milkshake, it is because a ride from A to B, if it takes a long time, can be quite boring. So having something to drink helps you to, it doesn't feel that long. It helps you to make the trip less annoying. Mm-hmm. So you're not actually competing with other milkshakes, but it might be people who sell snacks, or people who, actually listening to music in the car, or even
something
podcasts.
To pass the time. Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. So that is the job that your product is trying to do. So it's good to know who you're actually competing with.
That's so cool. I love that analogy. That's a good one. It reminds me of a roofer that I was friends with for many years, but he used to say this, and I think this is the best analogy for thinking about user experience. He used to say, you have to think like a raindrop. Which way is that water going to run down that roof, and where's it going to go next?
Yeah, I think that's a really good one. Yeah,
isn't that great? And ever since I started copywriting, I think back to Jack and him saying, "You got to think like a raindrop." And follow that path.
It's almost like a Bruce Lee quote, like "Be like water."
Yeah. Cool, huh?
But totally, and I think it's a great example.
So what's the last thing I have, I think mainly on this list, is what can we do to start learning how to use and implement user experience? Like how, if we're really just taking first steps into thinking about and I think it's probably some of the things you've already talked about with like learning about your audience and then making the connection between how you're serving your audience and how your business can also benefit with, how you present what you present to the audience to bring it back to you for some kind of business. So maybe you've kind of answered that, but if you're just starting off, what are the baby steps? What are the first steps to think about and look at?
Yeah, I think the first part really starts also in the double diamond with that discovery. And that's really talking to people. So if you run a business and you're thinking like, okay, which crowd am I serving, or which type of audience am I trying to help with my product or service? Know that they're not just one type of audience. And to give you a more or a better example on that front is that I've worked on a project where we were helping schools with specific services like payrolling, but also IT management and whatnot. So we at some point thought, well, our persona or our ideal customers are high school principals. But if you talk to high school principals and you talk to a bunch of them, you realize that there are certain factors that differentiate them from each other. So maybe there's a small school or a larger high school, and a smaller one maybe feels the need more to collaborate because they know they don't have the resources to do everything themselves. While a larger school principal might be more of getting sure everything is in-house. But then you might also have a principal who is let's say a younger individual versus someone who is closer to the age of retirement, where the person who is closer to retirement might have more or is less excited about innovation and change, whereas a younger
That's a
individual
huge,
might be
that's a lot of variables you just threw out there pretty quickly in that, like a lot of subgroups in that, what appears to be an audience, right?
exactly. But that's, yeah, to really bring that home, I would like to like share with the listeners, like make sure you understand your audience and how they are different from each other, because everyone will have their own things they're excited about or allergic to that you need to know and be aware of in your communication.
I totally love that. As soon as you started talking about it, it was started hitting me like just how good that was. That was, I think because I think we forget about, like, okay, so we're told to really concentrate on that client avatar as if there's one avatar. Come on. I know that's not true for me. I know that I have different audiences. Some aren't even a buying audience, yet they are still part of your community with your product, service, brand. So
I would want to say that even though to just quickly jump on that, even though if you would think in the example that I named with high school principals, even though they're all sorts of high school principals with different factors and whatnot, it's still a good idea to focus maybe on one of them. Because if, for example, the project that I mentioned was really about innovation and changing the way schools work, and we noticed that if we would be talking to, well, respectfully, people closer to the age of retirement, they're just less interested in innovation.
right.
So it was also making a choice and understanding, yes, we can still help them, but we would be more effective serving this audience.
Just like the old farmer.
Yeah.
Back to that farmer. That's so great. So I love, and maybe next time we can talk about productizing your service business rather than pay, looking for that consistent paying work. You just build it in. Another thing that I like that you talk about is positioning as a key P in marketing. So that's another thing that I would like to follow up sometime if you have time. Philip is just so interesting. Check out his website. I'll have all his links and stuff in the bottom of, in the description and that sort of thing. But I really appreciate you taking time to talk to me and to share all these great insights about user experience. And is there anything important that I forgot to ask you before we finish this up on the topic?
Yeah, of course. Well, my main plug, to be as honest as possible, is that right now I'm helping multiple companies, as you said, in a subscription service. If you'd like to hear or learn more about that, visit btng.studio. And if you'd like to connect with me, feel free to visit my LinkedIn. So once again, my name is Philip Wallage, and if there's a link in the description, that would be great. I love connecting with people and sharing
Philip,
the story.
I never once tried to say your last name. I'm glad you said it because I probably would have really had that wrong.
No worries. You can also go to philip.nl, which is a lot easier. It will forward you as well. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I love talking about these topics. And if anyone wants to hear more, be in touch.
Yeah, I just think you have, like I said, a lot of topics that you talk about that I felt like compelled to talk to you. And I really appreciate it. Though my last question then, tell everyone something that you haven't really, that would surprise people about you, or that they definitely don't know about you. Gotta give you one surprise question.
Yeah, total blindside. I think about me, well, what maybe is not so surprising, I have a lovely fiance and a 3.5-year-old son. And actually in April, so in 5-6 weeks, we are going to Lanzarote for 4 weeks for a small workation. I know it's not that crazy and exciting for the listeners, but I'm really looking forward to it.
I think that sounds wonderful. Congratulations. That sounds fantastic. And I think that is good for people to have that. I love to talk to people and meet people this way. I think that's what our world just kind of really grows bigger and smaller in doing these kind of things. So I thank you again for your time. It was good to meet you and talk to you, and I wish you the best.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning in for this week's episode of The Marketing Mirror with Philip, a world-class user experience design expert and specialist. He delivers user experience whenever you need it with world-class services. So check out Philip at btng.studio. Also, I want to give a big shout out to Eileen Smith. Make sure you sign up for her newsletter in the links below. She was our video sponsor, and we so appreciate Eileen Smith. Shout out. Make sure you tune in. We have some exciting guests coming up, including Joey G of the Superstar Women Entrepreneurs Media Network, where we're going to learn about everything you need to know for a top-of-the-line podcast. So stay tuned. Thank you.